Just take someone who's trying to get in shape. I mean, people will, what kind of protein powder should I get? What knee sleeves do I need? What are the best weightlifting shoes? And all that stuff is like the last 2% of difference. It's mostly like, don't miss workouts and get your reps in. This is what in the book I call the difference between motion and action. Action can actually deliver a result, but motion is related to that, but never will. Like going to the gym and talking to a personal trainer about signing up. That's fine. That's related to getting in shape, but it doesn't matter how many times you talk to a personal trainer, you're never going to get in shape. Whereas like doing 10 squats, that actually can do something. It's like talking to the trainer is motion, doing squats is action. I think a lot of times people get trapped in motion. They get trapped in analysis paralysis because it is a way to feel like you're making progress without running the risk of failure. Every day I try to leave my phone in another room outside of my office, at least until lunch, because then I get like a 4-hour block of time in the morning where I can just work without any distraction. And it's funny how quickly you don't, like, if my phone was on me in the morning, I would check it like, every 5 minutes or whatever. But when it's out of the room, I don't even find myself wanting to, I never walk up the stairs to go check it, even though it's only 30 seconds away. So it's interesting how little we actually want to do these things, but we just do them all the time because they're obvious and easy. And I think the key is to invert that. Take the things that are the bad habits, the distractions, the procrastinations, the unproductive uses of time, and make them more invisible, reduce exposure, and less easy to do. And take the things that are good habits and make it the equivalent of having your phone on you all the time, right? Make it right in front of you, make it obvious, make it easy, make it frictionless. What really changes your outcomes, or what really moves your life in a positive direction, is not a single 1% change or a single little habit. It's a collection of them all organized towards the same overall goal or overall outcome. So sometimes people they get a Fitbit and they get a Fitbit and they start walking 10,000 steps a day or something like that. And then they get frustrated after 3 months because they haven't seen this change in the mirror or this change on the scale or whatever. But it's like, well, that's good, but that's just one habit related to your health. You don't need a single little habit. You need 1,000 of them. And once you kind of build this collection of them all moving you in the same direction, it's kind of like each one adds a little grain of sand to the side of the scale, and eventually you tip the scales in your favor. And I think that's another reason to start with one habit at a time, is that you naturally sort of pick up other behaviors that are related to the overall thing that you're working on in the moment. And that helps to keep you focused rather than trying to do 2 or 3 things and then you get scattered. We interpret the stimuli and the data, the cues in our life differently based on what our viewpoint is at that time, based on what our personality or our personal viewpoint is, based on what you believe, your self-image. So, you see this all the time with politics. You have the same news story that runs on the TV, but then a liberal and a conservative interpret that data in completely different ways. And it's because of what's getting echoed back to them, because of how they see themselves, because of what filter they're running that data through. One of the most powerful forms of motivation is progress. So seeing some progress, it could be as simple as make your bed each day, right? But just doing that, embodying the identity of someone who's getting better, who's making progress, just pick one thing and use that as... This is true. Lewis, this is something you've probably seen with a lot of people that you've talked to, but habits are the foundation for mastery. And so I think this is true not just at the peak levels of performance, that you integrate these habits and use habits as the foundation for the next level of performance, but also true when you're getting started. Just build one small thing, carve out a 1% change, a 1% improvement, and use that as a stepping stone to the next level. True behavior change is really identity change, because you're not really looking to go from the type of person who doesn't run to the type of person who can run a 5K. That's fine. That's good. It's the outcome. But the goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to write a book. The goal is to become a writer. And once you identify as that type of person, in a sense, you're not even really pursuing behavior change anymore. You're just acting in alignment with the type of person that you already believe that you are. Right. It's like one thing to say, I want this. It's something different to say, I am this. If your expectations are sky high, if you set, I have a friend who's a writer, and his goal is to write 1 sentence every day. And it sounds absurd, but
if you set the expectation that low, then he can feel successful pretty much every day. He always can feel satisfied by sticking to the habit, which gives him a reason to come back again the next day. And sometimes he writes a full page, and sometimes it's just a sentence. But if he had set a goal of writing 1,000 words a day, there would be some days where he couldn't do that. And then suddenly he's feeling bad about that. Like, what if he wrote one sentence that day? He would feel bad about it, even though he still wrote that day, but it's just because of his expectation. So there's a little bit of like mental play that's going on there in how we sabotage ourselves by setting the bar so high. That's especially true in the beginning. I think that it becomes less true for maybe the 1 or 2 areas where you really want to be a master in life. Like if something's really important to you and you want peak performance, you want to be a professional athlete, you want to be, among the best authors or something like that, then maybe your strategy needs to change. But for most people, most of the time, the strategy is probably better to set the bar low, find a way to be satisfied and show up each day. And then once you've built the habit, then you optimize from there.
The people who appear to have the greatest self-control actually are just tempted the least. So they face temptations less frequently and therefore have the reserves and the resources to resist it when it occasionally comes up. And I think that this is actually like the lever to pull or the pressure point to push on, is that the way to get better willpower is to design an environment that tempts you less, not to say, let me just try harder.
How do I become the type of person who doesn't miss workouts? And that's another reason I like small habits, because if you have a really busy day and things are crazy and all you can do is 5 push-ups, if you're oriented around the result, around the outcome, it's easy to dismiss that. It's like, well, why would I even bother doing 5 push-ups? It's not going to get me in shape. But some days it's not about the result of the training. Some days it's about reinforcing being that type of person. Like, yes, life was crazy and things are really busy today, and the best I could do was getting 5 push-ups in, but I'm still the type of person who doesn't miss workouts, even when it's not ideal.
Right.
And in the long run, that can count for a lot, which is the kind of twisted thing about small habits, which is that even though they're small, they can still be meaningful. And if they're meaningful, they actually are big.
And so the challenge for building good habits and breaking bad ones is often finding a way to pull the long-term consequences of your bad habits into the immediate moment. So you feel a little bit of the pain right now and want to avoid it. And the long-term rewards of your good habits into the immediate moment so that you have a reason to repeat it again in the future. Each behavior casts a vote for the type of person that you want to become. And if you cast enough votes for that type of identity, you start to believe that about yourself, right? Like if you go to church for 20 years, you believe that you're religious. You study Spanish every Tuesday for 30 minutes, you believe that you are studious. So in that way, your habits provide evidence of your desired identity. And I think that is probably the ultimate reason that habits are so important. It's true, like habits can help you earn more money or be more productive or lose weight. And all that stuff is great. But in addition to the external results that habits provide, they also shape your sense of self. They are the engine or the avenue through which you learn to believe things about yourself. Fake it till you make it is asking yourself to believe something without evidence for it. And you can do that for a little while. You can do it for a day or a week. But eventually, there's a word for beliefs that don't have evidence behind them. It's delusion, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're deluding yourself, then eventually you give up on that. But the power of doing a better habit each day or casting a little vote for that type of person is that now you have evidence to root your belief in.
Occasionally, and this is true for everybody, if you live long enough, life will come for you at some point, right? Like something's going to happen. So occasionally life will stress you. But when life doesn't challenge you, I think it's important to challenge yourself, because otherwise you're just living in this optimal environment, air conditioning, and everything else is super easy. You can get all the information in the world at your fingertips. You never have to if you think about how crazy just eating is in the modern world. So previously, when we lived in tribes, you had to expend energy to get calories. At a minimum, you were foraging for berries, but otherwise you probably had to run something down and kill it, or part of a group hunt, or all kinds of other things. Now, you can get calories without expending any. All you have to do is just tap Uber Eats on your phone or something, and it'll show up at your door, and you can just sit on the couch, which is, of course, a recipe for poor health, but also the game has completely changed now. We've transcended a lot of our evolutionary programming and natural situations. And so you need to be careful about designing that to serve you rather than to work against you, because it can very easily nudge you in the other direction.
You don't have to be the victim of your environment. You can also be the architect of it. You can decide to design something to make your good behaviors easier and your bad behaviors harder. So when it comes to habits, if you want to practice your guitar more frequently, put it right in the middle of your living room so you run across it all the time. If you want to read more, when you make your bed in the morning, take the book you want to read, put it on top of the pillow. When you come back that night, pick it up, read a few pages, go to sleep. That small improvements, tiny habits, little choices are not just a cherry on top of our performance, not just a nice thing to have, but actually can be the key that unlocks significant success. What's interesting here is that everybody wants a transformation, right? Everybody wants a radical improvement, we want rapid success, but we fail to realize that small habits and little choices are transforming us every day already. That these times when you make a choice that's slightly better, slightly worse, a little mistake or a small error, 1% better or 1% worse, that these things compound over time. And habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. And so if you can learn to master those, then you can make time work for you rather than get against you, right? Good habits make time your ally. Bad habits make time your enemy.
Why is something rewarding? Why do you find it rewarding? And one of the reasons is because it satisfies the craving that preceded the action. So one way to put this is that perceived value motivates you to act. Actual value motivates you to repeat. So when you buy something on Amazon, you don't actually buy the product. You don't buy the book because you don't actually have it yet. What you buy is the image the product creates in your mind. Mm-hmm. You buy your expectation or the perceived value of the sales page. It's only after you get the book and you read it and you're like, oh, this is really good. That's when the actual value, it satisfies that craving you had before, and it reinforces, oh, hey, this was enjoyable. I should do it again next time. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have both of those on each side of the behavior.
It's often the people who have the worst habits that have the least amount of freedom. It's the people who have terrible financial habits that are always wondering where the next dollar will come from. Or it's the people who have poor learning habits that are always feeling like they're behind the curve. Or people who have poor fitness habits that are always struggling to find energy. But on the other hand, if you have your habits dialed in, if you have your fitness habits figured out, if you've got your finances handled, then you actually have way more freedom than you did before. Now you actually have the space you have the energy to do what you want. You have the strength to do what you want. You have the financial ability to spend time in areas that you want. And all of that comes from getting your habits handled. So it is a little counterintuitive, this idea that discipline equals freedom, or habits do not restrict freedom, they create it. But it's true that if you can handle that stuff, if the fundamentals of life are dialed in, then you've got space for spontaneity and creativity and freedom and all the other stuff.
A habit is a behavior that has been repeated enough times to be performed more or less automatically. So you can do it pretty much on autopilot. As you go through life, you face different problems. And some of those problems are big and some of them are small, like you need to tie your shoes. And whenever you face a problem, your brain starts looking for solutions to that. And as you come across solutions to the recurring problems in life, you start to automate those. And so every morning you wake up and you put your shoes on and you got this little problem that you need to solve. And pretty soon, after you tie your shoes 100 times or 500 times or 1,000 times, you can do it pretty much without thinking. And so that's another way of thinking about habits, is that they're kind of these like automatic solutions we fall into for whatever the recurring problems are we face.
So in a sense, habits are the path through which you can reshape your self-image. Because if you, and this is one reason why I believe in small habits, you know, if you say you have a really crazy day at work and you don't have time to do a full workout, well, doing 5 push-ups, it's easy to like dismiss that and be like, well, that's not going to do anything. It doesn't get me in shape. But if you do 5 push-ups, then you cast a vote for the identity of, I'm the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. Even if it wasn't ideal, even if I didn't have much time, even if the best I could do after this 12-hour flight was to do 5 push-ups and then crash in the hotel bed, I still didn't miss a workout. And the cumulative effect of that, of reinforcing your desired identity, I think is really big in the long run. And if it's meaningful, then it actually is big, even if the action is small. And that, I think, is the real reason habits matter. It's true, habits can help you get in shape or be more productive or reduce stress or make more money, and all those external results are great. But the real thing that they do is they reinforce and embody the identity of the type of person that you want to be.